superheroes don't wear purple.
And she's just like, I'm one of the good guys now.
Well, because he didn't fall for me. Well, I'm rubbing off on you.
We don't really have a thing where we go, welcome to the 80s and 90s Overlooked, the YouTube channel about overlooked 80s and 90s movies by a couple movie nerds.
But we do have you, Derick. So from Derick McDuff, sorry, it took me a second there to remember your last name. Previously joined us on an episode of our podcast, the 80s and 90s Uncensored, to talk about Titanic, and is back. Thanks for joining us again, Derick.
Yeah, thank you. This is, like I was saying before we started recording, this is right in my wheelhouse because I got a podcast where I just talk about underrated movies. So I'm glad to be on here talking about this one with you guys.
Yep. So you're going from underrated to overlooked, which are often the same thing.
Yeah, the Venn diagram is very close.
Yeah,
it's like right here, like this, like
exactly.
So, have you ever done an episode on this film?
No, and that's why it was one I wanted to talk about because we've never. I mean, I might at some point. One of my friends is actually called doing a guest spot when we eventually do it, but I was like, okay, I got to do something from the 90s or the 80s that we've never talked about on our show, and I was like, ooh. The Phantom. That's fucking perfect.
Phantom. So. That's a good choice.
Thanks.
Billy Zane in purple tights. Let's rock and roll.
I gotta be consistent and choose another Billy Zane movie, I guess, since I talked about Titanic with you guys. I gotta talk about
stick within the Billy Zane realm. That's good.
Yeah.
I have a confession. I had never seen this film until yesterday. In prep for this thing, I knew about it. I just had never seen it.
Oh, this movie is part of those 90s movies that came out after Batman that really drawed on the old 30s comics inspirations. It reminds me of like The Shadow. Remember that? Came out in 94. Or even The Rocketeer, which came out in 91.
That's what I was going to say.
It's really those kind of old
vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like half Indiana Jones, half Batman, honestly.
Yeah. In purple tights.
Yeah.
But that's all him, man. That's all him. There's no extra padding in that, apparently, according to the trivia that I read on it. Dude worked out for months in advance to get in shape for this.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
They even had what, like you said, Miles. They had padding in the purple suit, and they actually had to make another suit because Billy Zane got ripped because he was ready to slam evil.
Yes, the greatest freaking tagline. Such a great tagline. Oh my gosh!
But yeah, that comic is Lee Falk's comic strip. And so Billy Zane is like this immortal crime fighter. He goes basically he's the 21st version of this Phantom. A long time ago, there's like ancestors shipwrecked on this island or something crazy. It's all like Indiana Jonesy, but like kind of mystical, man.
Yeah, I love how they really lean into the just kind of like this is a 30s B movie. Like it's like so goofy, but it's never like wink wink. It's just like this is what we're replicating here. It even starts with like for those who came in late, like it's done like this is just one of the serials, like it's so cool.
Yeah, it's almost maybe an extension of because they had a serial. What was it the 40s? They had like the serial, the Phantom serials. And this is almost like a feature-length color version of one of those serials.
Yeah, it really is. Like, and I just love all of the over-the-top acting performances in this. Like, the guy who plays Xander Drax is just like chewing. He's just so evil. I love. He's just like, yeah. Oh my gosh, he is so freaking great in this. And then you've got like the love interest. She's like almost like a proto Peggy Carter kind of, and just. I'm, you guys are Gen X, but I'm a millennial. So like, this was like, I was like a kid when I saw this and I was like, wow. So I don't know if it would hit the same for you guys as it did for me. I don't know if you guys like it as much as me. I was even sure going back, I was going to be like, ooh, man, is this going to be good now that I'm like a jaded old man, And I went back and and watched it. And I was like, man, this is still so much fun. I actually had it on Blu-ray because I bought it on Blu-ray like years ago on some Black Friday sale. And I was like, oh, The Phantom, $5. I'm gonna buy this on Blu-ray, and then I just never watched it. But then I was like, okay, I cracked it open, and I had a good. So I don't know. Did you guys like it?
I liked it. I mean, I liked it when it came out.
I was saying, did you watch it when it came out, Jamie?
Yeah, I did. And I was probably in high school. But I got it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you take it seriously, like if you don't know that it was a 30s serial and it was a comic book from the 30s.
And that the acting is supposed to be a bit over the top, and
then you might not get it. And maybe that's why it did bomb at the box office, because maybe people didn't quite get what they were going for. Because, people are idiots. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And I think now, too, if you compare it to modern superhero films, it's very different. Like it would, because all the effects in this are practical effects. There's no, there's no green screen action going on here.
Yeah, like when that plane blows up, like that is a real explosion right there. Like this is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and such a believable scene too. It's like, so he's flying the plane. They got to drop out of the plane onto the back of the horse to escape, even though they're in this big clearing that he probably could have just crash landed the plane into anyways. But somehow they're so talented that he's able to drop Christy Swanson, or no, he drops to the horse first, and then she drops and he catches her into the horse. It's great.
Yeah, and I love that they do that like practically, like with stuntmen and stuff like that. Like that was so cool, because now you would just do it in that like Disney Dome thing or whatever, just like have just the things running by them. Like that is a real plane flying, and those are real stunt people jumping onto a horse. That is so cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And we haven't mentioned, of course, Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah. I forgot she was in this.
I know. This her that's first, the thing. Like you saying,
it's like, holy crap, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Oh,
I think it's her first big role, right?
I think so. I think she'd done stuff prior to this, but I think this was probably like,
because the director like worked with her on the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, so she wasn't like a big time movie star yet. But the director hired her because he liked working with her on that show, and I think this is like her big movie role.
That makes a lot of sense.
His direction for her must have been like, okay, now I need you to just kind of play it up, be a villain,
and just look amazing and be a amazing looking bad guy that can totally like seduce anybody because
I love that she has the line too. She's like, when Treat Williams' character is like, how do you know that he's in love with her? And she's like, well, because he didn't fall for me.
Yeah, I was about to say that's just so good. And I just kind of love her like turn to like being like a quote unquote like a good guy at the end, because she's just kind of like, yeah, man, she's like, I'm just in this for the money, and like I've got my lady pirates over here. We're just doing our thing, and then she sees like how like scummy these guys are being. She's like, all right, I'm gonna protect this like lady over here, because like screw you guys. And she's just like, I'm one of the good guys now.
There's no real justification for it at all. Like there's the one where the girl says like, are you not mean about anything or something when they're in the cab. I'm trying to remember that whatever she says to her.
Yeah,
and then that's literally it. And then she's you know what? I'm gonna be a good guy now.
Yeah.
That's Zeta-Jones. So the Phantom goes to New York City, so it's all 30s New York. Yeah, he's got to stop the bad guy from doing his thing, right? It's a pretty basic story. But one interesting piece of trivia I found was the Palmer Mansion was actually the real life Playboy Mansion. That's Hugh Hefner's place, and he let him film there. He's like, "Yeah, come on, film. Go ahead and film in my mansion." It's a Playboy Mansion.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
That's rad. Hugh Hefner is involved with this movie, man. That's sweet.
Yeah. They should have let him do a cameo somewhere in like, just one of the crowd scenes, and just had Hugh Hefner, as an extra in the background or something like that. That would have been my deal if I was Hugh. I'd be like, fine, you can film here, but one of the conditions is I'm in the film somewhere.
I like Billy Zane's suit because it's really close to the comic. It's a different shade of purple, and they don't have the stripes on outside underwear like they do in the comics, but it's pretty close. It's almost like they're like, hey, you see that comic book there from the 30s costume designer? Yeah, just do kind of that.
Yeah, which
he looks so goofy.
And I really appreciate that they like, because it is a really goofy costume, like you were saying. And they're just like, let's do it. And this was the time period when they were like, we got to make everything look so cool. Like the Batman movies, they're like, we got to like make this all modern and put nipples on them. And then you have like the X-Men movies, like where it's like black leather. We can't have anything cool. Like the X-Men have all these colorful uniforms. And they're like, no, just wear black leather.
Yeah, it's got to be
just
like black. Mm-hmm. You got to look like total. Yeah.
And this one, they're just cool like, have a big goofy purple costume with like a mask that makes the, like, I'm just like, yes, good. Like, go for it. Like, just be as so over the top.
Yeah, totally. I love the mask too. And it's like, masks on, I'm the Phantom. Mask off. Who is this guy? Gosh.
I like she figures it out though. She's just like, all right. And he's like, oh no.
How did you know it was me?
It's you.
I wonder. You and Superman.
Like the Clark Kent glasses. Like, oh.
Yeah.
Billy Zane likes sushi a lot, like a lot of actors do. And he didn't have a lot of time, so he'd actually go get sushi in that costume. People would be like, oh, okay. Welcome to Hollywood, I guess.
I'd do it.
Like, yeah, dude, I'd wear it here. I'm not even Hollywood. I'm up here near Seattle, and maybe people wouldn't mind up here either, but
I think doesn't Ryan Reynolds occasionally dress up in his costume?
That checks out. That checks out.
I could see him doing that. And if he's in the mask, he can go to like Comic Cons and stuff, and people probably wouldn't know it's him.
Yeah, yeah. The best was like when Andrew Garfield went to Comic Con in just like a crappy Spider-Man costume and just pulled it off.
Not the proper one, but just kind of a cheesy one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This wasn't like movie actor. It was just something you could buy in like, from like Party City or something like that. He just showed up at Comic Con and or I think, Bryan Cranston did the same thing with a Walter White mask. And he pulled it off.
That's great. You have to do it.
A lot of people made fun of the fact that it was a purple suit because like purple isn't very scary, I guess, because he's like a big grape or Barney or whatnot. But if you think about it, purple might be a good fit for this guy because he's like the Phantom is like this king of his realm, right? Mm-hmm. And purple is actually considered a very regal color. I don't know. You can knock the Phantom's purple suit all you want. But the fact is, it's actually appropriate for what he's all about.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, because that makes like literally like back in the day before they figured out how to make purple synthetically in like 18 something. It was purple dye was literally worth more than its weight in gold. Like that's also why there's no purple flags is because people just couldn't afford to dye flags that color.
Yeah, there's only
we can't waste that on a flag. Come on,
one flag with purple in it. And it's one of the Caribbean countries, and it's a little bird in the seal that has a little piece of purple on it. Otherwise, there's no purple in any of the flags. But that's expensive. So I don't see why people are knocking his purpleness.
Who's knocking his purpleness?
I read on the internet, who's purple? Who has purple suit? Superheroes don't wear purple.
Whatever. Who has yellow spandex, huh?
Yeah, right?
Come on. And speaking of that, like I think Billy Zane was perfectly cast for this role. Like he has the 1930s look to him. Obviously, the fact that he put all the effort into getting in shape and stuff like that of other people that potentially could have played the role, and I think he was perfectly cast for it.
Well, you know who they wanted to play the role?
Well, you probably got the trivia in front of you there, Jamie.
Huh?
I was just saying, you probably have the trivia right in front of you. Let's hear it.
I do. It was Bruce Campbell, your guy that you love, Bruce Campbell, right?
I love Bruce Campbell, but I don't see Bruce Campbell in this.
Yeah, he'd be a little too like wink, wink. He'd be like, "Oh, isn't this ridiculous? I'm wearing a big purple suit." Like I'm the same. I love Bruce Campbell, but like you need someone who is going to play this like it's the most like he's doing Shakespeare. He's doing the most serious thing in the world.
Yeah, that's the thing. And Billy Zane played it serious. Still with a bit of like lightheartedness, obviously, because of the character and stuff. But yeah, Bruce Campbell would have been just too. It would have been too over the top, I think, with Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, definitely. I think they went the right choice. And I was about to say too, I think that scene where he's like getting patched up by like his like I don't know, his butler or whatever. I don't know what their relation is supposed to be, but like when you see him with this, I think they were just like, we have to have a scene with my shirt off to show that these are my real muscles.
Totally. It's like, you know how much effort this went to? We got to get my shirt off here.
We can't have people saying it's a suit. They got to know that I did the Bowflex and everything.
That's right. The Bowflex. That worked out for this.
Yeah.
Well, you know what would have been more cheesy in this role? Adam West.
Yeah, yeah.
But they were actually going to make this movie in the 70s, and Adam West was going to be the star, but it didn't go through. But
yeah,
you want to talk about cheeseball?
Yeah.
It'd have been like a 60s Batman kind of thing in that way.
That's probably exactly what it would have been.
Yeah, I could have seen him, Billy Zane, maybe being like a Batman, honestly, like in this. It's funny. Like he could have been like, there's an alternate universe when it gets recast and it doesn't become Val Kilmer and it becomes Billy Zane. Like I could see that working really well. Like I think he would have been great in Batman Forever, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he would have been well cast in that.
Yeah.
Because he's got the right style. He's kind of got the right attitude about him and or characters that he can play and stuff. I mean, come on, he went from this to Titanic.
Yeah.
The hero to the bad guy.
Yeah. Which is weird. He's not in a lot of stuff. Like I was looking at his page on Letterboxd and I was like, he's in this, he's in Titanic, and then he's got small parts in the Back to the Future movies, like which was his first movie was Back to the Future. He's like one of the background guys, and then he's like himself in Zoolander, and that's really it. Like he's not in anything, which is weird because he's like a really good, like handsome leading man, strong actor guy. Like I'm like, why wasn't he everywhere? I don't know. Maybe just this movie killed his career or something.
It's a walk off.
They're like, come on, Billy Zane. I wonder if Billy Zane. Maybe he's just got a really bad agent or manager or something like that, and he's just not getting the right roles. I don't know, or maybe he just doesn't want to be huge. Maybe he just likes being Billy Zane,
like the Josh Hartnett thing, where he's just like, I'm just gonna fly under the radar.
Yeah, I don't want to be too huge. I want to get mobbed everywhere I go. That kind of stuff. I'll let Leonardo DiCaprio do that after Titanic. I'm just gonna be there. Yeah.
So this movie obviously did poorly at the box office. You know, it's overlooked. People critics hated it. Fans that hated, like to this day, people still like rag on this movie unjustly, I think. But there was one critic who gave this a really good review. Do you know who that was?
Roger Ebert.
Yes.
Was it Roger really? Ebert, that was a completely random guess.
Yes. He gave this movie, out of his 4-star system, 3.5 stars. He it's one of the lowest rated movies that he ever gave that good of a rating to. Like he freaking loved this thing. He was like, oh my gosh, it's so much fun. Like this is just like an old adventure serial. It's going and they're shooting and they're just doing all these crazy stuff. He was all about how fun that I was like sometimes Roger just gets it, you know?
He understood what this movie was about and what it was about.
And maybe he even saw those serials when he was younger, and so he understands it, right?
Yeah. Because I feel like the 90s were pretty cynical sometimes, you know, like it's like we've got to be so serious and stuff, and like this was just this is a throwback to another time, you know. And I think it's the same reason The Rocketeer failed too, honestly.
It's interesting to me, though, that stuff like Dick Tracy would just blow up so hard. And it was even more over the top. It was.
Well, didn't that one lose a bunch of money? Like I think that movie failed pretty hard at the box office, right? Dick Tracy?
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure. I thought it did well because it was just everywhere for a long time, but maybe it did bomb.
I think that they were just trying to promote it so much. So
it was.
Well, and I think
that's why it bombed is because they spent half the budget on McDonald's shit.
So no, it did make money. It made money. According to IMDb, the budget was $47 million. Its total U.S. gross was $103 million.
Okay, maybe it's just so much marketing and stuff with that because I know that they really marketed that movie, and they were even going to build a ride at Disneyland called Dick Tracy's Crime Stoppers, and then they just abandoned the plans because apparently they were it wasn't successful. I think
it blew up really huge for less than a year and then faded into obscurity, right? It's one of those things that burst onto the scene with $100 million of marketing and then gone, vanished.
Well, that could be it. Maybe they spent so much on marketing that all that profit really just went to that marketing budget.
Yeah, and box office returns are so weird and deceptive because it's like, oh, well, it made that much more than it cost, and people are like, okay, so that means it's profitable. I'm like, well, the studios are only making about half that money because half of it goes to like the theaters and stuff like that, and then you have to spend so much money on marketing. You really have to make like 3 times your budget to even, like, it depends, but like the bigger a movie is, the more you promote it, the harder it is to make your money back, and you've got to see other people, distributors, and everybody else gets a chunk of the pie. So
yeah, and that one definitely had a lot of marketing around it. Yeah, it didn't have like McDonald's meal characters and stuff like that too. Yeah.
I don't remember the marketing for the Phantom though. Like, I don't remember that it was out there. I don't think
they're really marketing.
Yeah. That was probably another problem too, is like nobody really knew about this movie. Like, it wasn't a big, you're not going to get a McDonald's Happy Meal toy of the Phantom, it's although that's how hard it was to get toys. Cause I remember when I was a kid, I made like out of paper mache or something, the 3 skulls. I was just like, I wanted to have them, and they couldn't get them anywhere. So I was like, I'll just do it myself,
Yeah, or the skull ring, because the skull ring is what he used. He actually impresses it into his enemies. Like he brands them with the skull.
Yeah.
But the other ring he has, like, he gives to other people saying, hey, we're tight now, and I'm in your, like, we're friends forever, and I'm going to help you. So the yin and yang with the rings.
Did either of you guys ever read the comics?
Mm-mm.
I mean, I kind of maybe took a look at them because I was interested in like the source material, even back in the day, because I was always interested in kind of those old 30s, 40s kind of comics and serials that the 90s, a lot of these 90s movies were drawing inspiration from. Because I thought it was just pretty interesting. But again, if you don't, like with this movie, I think the biggest thing is I don't think people got what it was going for. That it was just an extended serial from the old days, and maybe they just didn't get it. I don't know. I think it's overlooked and underrated.
Yeah. Yep.
Concur.
Yeah.
Overlooked and underrated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Venn diagram.
So you predicting that they're going to reboot it at some point?
Yeah, I feel like, this is a lot of that stuff from the 90s is coming back, because like nostalgia works in 30-year cycles. Like, in the 90s, we had all the people from the 70s grew up. And so like all the nostalgia from the 70s has come back. And now that it's 30 years on from the 90s, we're starting to see, okay, all the things from the 90s are starting to come back in vogue. We're getting like I think they're even working on like a Rocketeer kind of like continuing. So I'm curious to see if it's going to be when because I do think they will do it, if they're going to do it as like a full-on reboot, or if they're going to do it, which is something that I really like and it's getting more popular now, of like, oh, this is the continuation. If they're like, okay, here we go, now we're in like the 50s and it's like the 22nd Phantom, like, and Billy Zane shows up and now he's the ghost dad. Like, that would be rad. I think if you kind of tie it in that way.
I agree. You guys... I enjoy the continuation of the story, the sequel of the story, and having the characters be played by the other, and passing it on, that kind of stuff, versus just the reboot, which is completely different story.
But do you guys know about this TV show that was around for a couple seasons before the movie? It was called Phantom 2040, and it was he was in his suit and stuff. And it was a kind of animated thing, but it happened in the future. So it was like all sci-fi and stuff. Have you guys ever seen that?
No.
The only thing I've seen where he's like on a TV show is like he's a part of a team and it's called the Defenders of the Earth. Is that something separate?
Yeah, that's something separate. This one's called Phantom 2040. And he looks just like he's got the purple suit with the mask and the skull and everything. And it's 2 seasons, but and this happened before them, 2 years before the movie.
Okay, I'd never even heard of that.
To the movie, but it was in the future, so it's all sci-fi looking. Do you guys know about that?
No. I'm looking it up right now. You're right. He has the same purple suit and everything going on.
Yeah. So it seems like they were even doing stuff more with it. And then they did have a mini series in 2009 called The Phantom. And have you guys heard of that?
I saw it on Letterboxd and I was like, what is, because I was like looking up the Phantom and I saw this other Phantom thing and I was like, what is this? Like, it looked really, he's got like a visor.
Yeah, he's got like a he looks kind of like purple RoboCop.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like the 2014 Joel Kinnaman.
He looks
RoboCop.
like Barney meets RoboCop, and it was a 2009 miniseries. I had never seen it, but I think I want to now just to check it out. And if you watch the whole thing, it's almost 3 hours long. Okay. And it's the Barney meets RoboCop. I don't know if it's any good or not because I've never seen it.
Is it live action or animation?
It's live action. The Phantom 2040 was the cartoon leading up to the 90s movie. So that was like the futuristic cartoon. But this one, I don't know what it is. But yeah, I think they've done stuff since then. So maybe they just, I don't know. Just to let you know, they've done other things with it.
Well, how about a Phantom Rocketeer crossover? So reboot, because they both came out around the same time. Neither was all that popular. They had that same 30s feel.
Well, and you could throw the Shadow.
Throw the Shadow in there. Yeah, a lot of those 30s serial type of thing going on.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because the Defenders of the Earth show, which I mentioned, which also takes place in the future, because it came out in the 80s. The future was 2015, but it's the Phantom and it's Mandrake the Magician, who's like another like pulp guy, and then it's Flash Gordon. So like that could be the next thing. Like
I'd watch that. Yeah, that's cool. Like, I'd watch that.
I've seen that, Derek, because I watch. There's this cartoon channel on Pluto TV, and I've seen it on there. I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, so that could be the thing. That could be cool. You know, yeah, the Phantom, Flash Gordon, they're due for a reboot.
Yeah,
so like
Defenders of the Earth.
Yeah,
a live action kind of movie. Yes,
totally, man.
That's very ambiguous, but I think it would work well. They should do that.
I agree.
Hollywood needs to listen to Derick McDuff.
I've been saying that for years.
They just need to do. They just need to fire everybody and just start listening to Derick because he knows what's up.
Yeah, exactly. Like DC should have hired me when they were looking for their Kevin Feige. I got ideas.
Exactly. They still haven't got it sorted out. They're still screwing it up. Why? Because they didn't hire Derick.
Fire. Exactly.
Come on, guys. Square this shit away.
So what do you think, guys? Thumbs up, thumbs down? What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely a thumbs up on this one.
Yeah, two thumbs up from me, honestly. Like this was so much fun. You're always worried when you go back to movies that mean so much to you from childhood because you go back and you watch, you're like, is this good or is it just like nostalgia? Like, and you go out, you watch it like, oh, this is really cheesy. But no, I was like having a ball with it. I was like, these guys are having the time of their lives. Like, this is so like this movie knows what it is. It really does. And like the end where they're like in a underground volcano pirate lair fighting against like there's like magical skulls and there's like 3 different sides and like Catherine Zeta-Jones is switching sides. And then I just love the scene where like he's fighting the kind of like the main henchman guy who killed his dad. They're having this big, and then he just gets blown up by the 3 skulls, and you're like, oh, things got real. Like, and he just like, there's a part in this movie that lives in my mind where he's like, impossible, and he just blows up and just like explodes the whole lot. That all lives rent free in my brain to this day. So it was so much fun to go back and revisit this. Like, I gotta watch it again sometime soon. This felt like, the 80s had Indiana Jones, and then we didn't get one again until 2007. This felt like it was kind of filling that gap of like Indiana Jones movies. We didn't get Indy in the 90s. So this is what we got instead. And for me, it worked. I think this is like better than at least 1, maybe 2 Indiana Jones movies. Definitely the most recent one, Indiana Jones 4, that's for sure.
Yeah,
exactly.
We'll see how 5 turns out, but yeah, absolutely. I was impressed with this too when I watched it. I'm surprised I had never. I mean, I knew about it and just for whatever reason had never watched it, and so it was great that you selected. I'm like, finally, I'm going to watch this film, and even my wife actually liked it, and she usually hates this kind of stuff, and she was like, that was a lot of fun. I'm like, really? And she was like, yeah. I mean, it was cheesy and over the top, but you got to appreciate it for what it is. And I'm like, well, I'm rubbing off on you. Excellent.
Wow. So you actually watched a movie she didn't hate.
Yeah, that's rare.
You might stay married, man.
Rare on this stuff that we do. I usually watch stuff that
usually she's like, oh God, Milo.
The black hole. This is so terrible.
The black hole. I'm out here saving movies and Milo's marriage.
Exactly. Thank you, Phantom. Thank you, Billy Zane.
Yes, exactly.